Hello everybody, welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome to another preview. It's round 9. We have been on a break that feels like it's lasted an eternity, but I definitely needed it, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. The back-to-back heartbreak, I guess, of Essendon and Port Adelaide losses on the back of a horrible Good Friday. It's just been a recipe for emotional torture. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. So while I have very much missed North Ball in all its glory, it has been really nice to have a bit of time off and a little bit of downtime. I'm sure you guys feel the same, rejuvenated and ready to go again. Like I said, we're here for the round 9 preview. We play Brisbane on Sunday afternoon, 4:40 at Ninja Stadium down in Hobart. It is our second last home game in Tasmania before we bid farewell to the Apple Isle. Is that what it's called? If that's not what it's called, that's super embarrassing, but it is our second last game before we do bid farewell to our home games down in Tassie. We've got quite a bit of news to get through first, and then we'll have a bit of a look into the game, and then we'll talk about the teams and changes and stuff later on this week. Let's just get straight into the preview. Let's start with the news. Some of it good, some of it bad, and some of it is up for interpretation. Let's start with what undoubtedly will be the best news that I will deliver for you in this brief little segment at the top of the preview. Matt Whitlock and Robert Hansen Jr. have both been awarded contract extensions. They've shown some really good signs to start off season 2025 in the preseason and also on field for brief moments. Hansen Jr. contract extension until the end of 2026 and Matt Whitlock until the end of 2027. Both of them definitely can have important roles to play in this side in the future. Matt Whitlock in particular, he did play that one role down back in the game, his debut game against Sydney in round 4. Hansen Jr. has been in and out of the side from sort of late last year and early this year. Definitely some promise there, and maybe with a little bit more development, a little bit more game time under his belt, and maybe we'll be able to see him grow into the high pressure, high half forward player that we would love to see from him. He showed quite a few glimpses of excitement on field. You kind of just get really energized whenever you see the ball in his hands. Probably did teeter off a little bit in his last couple of games before being relegated back into the VFL, but I don't think that spells the end of Robert Hansen Jr. this season, and it obviously doesn't spell the end for him and his career as he has been awarded that contract extension. Jacob Constanti is the other one. He has apparently hit the 8 required games he needed to trigger a contract extension for him at North Melbourne. He's definitely been, I've said this a few times so far this year, probably one of, if not the biggest surprise packet for me in terms of North Melbourne in season 2025. I didn't know if he would get a game, let alone be able to have the impact that he's had and play all 8 games to start season 2025. There is calls potentially he will be rested this week or dropped this week. His form maybe hasn't been as good as strong as it was to start the season. I still really like the defensive pressure and elements that he does bring into the side, which I have spoken about previously. But watch this space. There's no official announcement around Constanti at this time, but no doubt that one will be coming our way shortly, and I think it is really well deserved. He's had, like I said, a really strong, maybe surprisingly for me, but not so much for others, strong start to season 2025. So let's hope that continues on, and his confidence only boosts and grows further as this news will inevitably come through, and hopefully with a little bit more game time and just a bit of more time to adjust at senior level. He hadn't played a game at AFL level before coming over to North, so we do kind of forget sometimes how fresh and how young these guys are, and they have been even in the system for a few years but haven't really had a proper chance and a proper crack. So very, very exciting news for all 3 of them, and I think, like I said, each of them can have a big impact on North Melbourne, I think, in both the short term and long term if they want to. I guess the future and their destiny is in their hands, and what they make of it, I guess time will tell. From 3 careers being extended, it seems like one might have ended over the past 24 hours. The club announced yesterday, or I'm filming it on Wednesday now, so on Tuesday, that Miller Bergman, small defender, has unfortunately done his ACL, and that sees his season 2025 over. You would have to think that it's probably also the end of his career at North Melbourne anyway. Unfortunately, Miller Bergman has been a victim of being unable to get his body 100% right and then not really making the most of his opportunities when he does get them at senior level. He hasn't really been able to make an impact. Now, we don't know where he does stand, I guess, when the season ends, but for now, there's a line ruled through him for season 2025. He will likely move on to the long-term injury list, which does open up a spot for North Melbourne in the mid-season draft. It's funny, in the Q&A video that I did release earlier this week, there was a question around Callan Coleman-Jones and whether he would be somebody who would be moved onto the long-term injury list to open up a potential mid-season draft spot, and then what kind of player would we take if we did take a pick into the mid-season draft? Well, all those questions can now be answered. You would have to think, given the injury to Jackson Archer, 8 weeks on the sideline, season done for Miller Bergman and Josh Goda, who, while we all hope won't be too far away, you never really know with him and how his body is going to hold up. So potentially that small lockdown defender role is something we will need to look into and see if there's someone available who nominates for the mid-season draft that will be able to step into that position. I know there's plenty of question marks around Luke McDonald and his capabilities at this point in time, and also Darcy Tucker, who doesn't really play that traditional small lockdown defender role, but I think we all saw the tagging role on Rosie, and I don't need to continue that discussion around that and his capabilities. Darcy Tucker, I think there is maybe a role for him at some point again later in season 2025 if he can reinvent himself as this small lockdown defender and do a good job of it. Then I'm all for giving him a shot for now, but it seems like our depth in that position is dwindling quickly. So it's something that I would definitely, if I were at North Melbourne, if I was in charge of recruiting and I was overseeing the mid-season draft, that's definitely something I would be looking into. It kind of seems like a no-brainer. As for Miller Bergman, it is a really unfortunate thing for him specifically. Footy can be really cruel sometimes, and as I said at the top of this segment, you would think that his career is probably over at North Melbourne. There hasn't really been an opportunity for him to cement his spot permanently in the side, be it through form, injury, or both. So I guess we'll just wait and see. For him right now, the focus would be on rest and recovery. I wish him all the best. I'm thinking of him. I'm sure all of you guys are at home as well. He is hoping that he does make a full and speedy recovery, and then we can reassess our options in terms of him and in terms of the mid-season draft as the season goes on. And to round out the news portion of this video, National Recruiting Manager Scott Clayton has announced he will be departing the North Melbourne Football Club after 5.5 years. He arrived at North Melbourne in December 2019 and has overseen a lot of our recruitment and drafting action over the past 5 national drafts. Take of that what you will, if it's good news, if it's bad news, if you're not so fast. I will leave that one up to interpretation. I know we've definitely nailed a fair few picks in there, both early on and later in the draft, but then on the other hand, there's probably a few that leave a lot of us scratching our heads. The draft itself has, I feel, become a real monster on its own, and it's become so important, and it's become so... just over the past few years, the exposure, I think, as well, has really increased, and therefore emphasis on how important it is to nail every single pick, especially as we get closer to Tasmania entering the competition, has become more and more apparent as the years move closer. So to be able to nail somebody for that role is going to be vital, and I have no doubt the Roos will have someone up their sleeve, an appropriate replacement for him. But in my mind, I think after 5.5 years in that role and someone with a questionable strike rate of success, I'm more than happy for us to go our separate ways and for North to hopefully pick up someone with a bit of fresh eyes and a fresh perspective on things, and will hopefully bring some exceptional talent to the club. Let's move on to the review portion of this video, and 2018 at the Gabba was the last time North Melbourne defeated Brisbane, and it was a nail-biting 3-point win, and the results that have followed have mostly gone in Brisbane's favour, and the margins have been quite favourable, particularly in recent years. The past couple of years, of course, we played Brisbane over in Adelaide for Gather Round. This year we faced the Suns and they've changed things up. This is our one fixture against the reigning premiers in season 2025 down at Ninja Stadium, like I mentioned at the top of the video. It's our second last home game in Tasmania before we bid farewell to that chapter of our time. I mean, we kind of feel like we've been building momentum over the past couple of games. Everyone knows I have it on Good Friday and all the meltdowns that followed, my own meltdown very much included. I'm not excluding myself from that, but we've shown two really strong performances against Port Adelaide and then obviously last Thursday night against Essendon, that narrow defeat, that it would have been nice if we were going to have a slightly easier fixture to hopefully be able to crack our second win for the season. It's not to say that this is an impossible task. I think that you go into every game always a chance. I don't think you can ever write yourselves off, and I think that would be a naive thing to do, but it is going to be difficult. Brisbane, I feel like, despite sitting on top of the ladder 1-7, have flown under the radar somehow this season. They are, of course, the reigning premiers. We have lost to them really, really significantly over the past couple of years in particular. I think it's been 70-odd points both times, and it's hard to see a world where we win this game, but I don't want to rule us out. I want to keep that slim chance alive. You guys know delusion and optimism is my speciality, so let's just roll with that, shall we? But look, I do really think that we just need to go in and back ourselves and our best footy. We need to back the footy that we know we can play in Tasmania as well. Can't forget that ground was once a fortress for us. And I know it doesn't hold the same significance that it once did, but I don't know why we can't attempt to wind back the clock and just play a bit of ugly, dirty footy and turn it into a bit of a scrap and just keep it tight and keep it a close contest. I feel like that might be our best chance. In the midfield, I think that's going to be a really, really interesting battle. I think we are going to need our very best defensive game on. Both Ashcroft brothers had a sensational performance in the Q clash. Lachie Neale is forever dangerous, and Josh Dunkley just added another dimension to that midfield over the past couple of seasons that he's been there. So I really feel like for North, we just have to be on our A game and we have to bring our best footy. If our best footy isn't good enough, then that's fine, but we definitely can't afford to slack off. And if we are going to do one thing in this game, I would love to see us have a really competitive, close, tight first quarter. We have not won a first quarter so far this season. We are 0-8 in first quarters, and that just kills your momentum and it kills your self-confidence and belief straight off the bat. And I just feel like we'll be so much better off if we can actually find a way to get some runs on the board early. I think the players would be feeling it, and I feel like at this point now it would be absolutely a mental thing, both mentally trying to get the runs on the board early, but also putting ourselves three steps behind by not winning a first quarter. You know what I mean? I definitely think that's something that we need to do, and that's definitely something I would want us to really be working on and focusing on. I think anything can happen, and at least giving ourselves half a chance in a game for a quarter or a half of footy is better than just feeling like we're constantly chasing our tails. In terms of players who are in and out already, so I'm filming this on Wednesday night. The extended bench comes out tonight on Thursday with the team finalised on Friday. Obviously, Jackson Archer with that hamstring injury, he will be out of the side for at least 8 weeks, so it opens up a spot. Naturally, I think Aiden Core is the one that fits into his place. I would say he's probably the one that can play smaller if needed, he can play taller if needed, and he is a really solid lockdown defender as opposed to the rest of the sitting on the side. And in terms of the structure we've kind of gone for over the past couple of weeks, our defense, I have said a few times, has definitely looked its most dangerous over the past couple of weeks, and the score line both for the opposition and the margin would reflect that. So we've been going with just the one key defender in Callan Dawson, and then Charlie Comben as the second tall defender, playing more of that floating intercept role. If we are going to stick with that same structure, Aiden Core to me seems like the natural fit there. He can play smaller, as I mentioned, but I do think that he also offers really great leadership. So we'll leave that one there. I don't know who else would potentially come in for Jackson Archer. I don't know if they'd be looking at Darcy Tucker for a return. Obviously, Miller Bergman, he's injured. Josh Goda probably isn't ready yet. So there might be a spot there to fill, and how we look to fill that, if it's not Core, if it's somebody else, or do we go for something more attacking? I guess there's a bit of a big hole actually to fill. I think Jackson Archer over the past couple of weeks has proven how vital he is to our side and structure since coming back from suspension and injury. So I'd be looking to definitely try and replace him with as much of a like-for-like replacement as possible. On the flip side, we can hopefully expect George Wardlaw to make his return to the side. Of course, rested on the back of a 5-day break against Essendon. We really could have used his effort and his resilience. Obviously, we do have Will Phillips in there playing that more defensive role, and I do think we need to play both George and Will, and if we can find a way to put both of them in this side, I think that would be to our benefit, especially against Brisbane, that is just such a real force to be reckoned with. So that's what I would be looking at doing, and if, like I said, there was a way we could have both of them in the side, that's probably what I hope we would do in terms of our forward line. Look, I think Jack Darling should stay in there. I understand the calls for a rest, but we have to remember he's just come off a 10-day break. They'll all be feeling a lot fresher, both physically and mentally. So I'd hope that he takes his place. I think structurally he is really important to us and to our side. So those are sort of my initial thoughts in terms of the game and in terms of the side. We will definitely debrief the side once we get an extended bench and a confirmed 23 over the next 48 hours. But I'd love to hear how you guys are feeling and what you're thinking heading into this game. Leave all of your thoughts down in the comments below. And what are you thinking about all the news that has come out of North Melbourne so far this week? The 2 contract extensions, the potential 3rd on the horizon, the Miller Bergman season-ending injury, and the Scott Clayton departure. There's so much going on in North Melbourne at the moment. It's definitely the place to be. Let me know your thoughts either in the comments down below or over on socials. Kanga TV Show across Facebook, Instagram, X, and you can send me an email as well if you would like to add anything further. I'll be back again. This isn't the last time you'll hear from me before our game on Sunday. We'll be back to tie a little bow around our best 23 and talk about who's made the side and what it could look like heading into Sunday's game. But until then, go Roos.